How's that? Headless. Almost. There we go. And then this, and come over here and go this way. Here we go. Yeah, we're talking. All right, we're gonna start on our feet today. I'm just gonna roll this back towel up. And we're gonna spend a little bit of time talking through the juncture of the upper and lower body, which, we tend to think of hips as the juncture of the upper and lower body, but it's also more than that. We're going to start out with the blocks in the middle of our mat, both together on their high setting, right? And we're going to straddle them, but comfortably here. And when you look down at your feet, they should have a little external rotation. We're not going for pointed side to side, just on a nice little 45-degree angle. And then you're going to take your hands to your hips and you're going to press over to one side. And then you're going to press over to the other side. You might get some crickety cracks. That's good. Just get some movement in there. All right. We can't do this all day. Our hips will get tired. They're already tired. Our hips usually start tired because they're load bearing. And so when they've been load bearing a lot, which they do as we're active, they fatigue easily, right? So this is just a check-in. How's it going? Okay, and then you go over to one side, let's say the right, so we're all on the right side together, and then you circle around to the middle and back. You're just kind of getting into that right hip a couple times so you can really feel it, and then you're going to come around to the left, and you're going to circle around and back. So you're just really getting one quadrant. You want to make sure your knees feel great doing this. So find an angle of bend, a squishiness in the knee that feels good. So they're not getting stressed out, right? Now, the next time you come around, we're going to go forward and front on the left quadrant, right? So you're to the side and then you press forward and front. We're going to breaking this hip circle down so that we can really work through each aspect of the circle rather than kind of glossing over our least favorite parts. Okay, next time you come forward and around, go all the way front and then over to the right again, and then we'll go forward and around from the right. 2 more times. This is totally awkward, ungraceful movement, by the way. We would never do this in a public setting. I don't think. The point is, though, to explore. So after you finish your right quadrant, we're going to do a half circle here in front. Half circle around and to the side. Half circle around and to the side. Hey, hips. Good morning. How you doing? Okay, and now we're going to take it to the back. Your half circle around and to the side and back. Really try to hit all those points that you did in each quadrant. Try not to leave any little sections unarticulated. Good. And now we're really going to do a full circle 2 times around. Keep going. Whoa, wild ride. And again. And then we're going to switch directions. Round, back, and front. Around, back, and front. Good, and come to standing. Now we're ready for a little bit more bend in our hips because we've warmed it up. So first of all, let's see, turn your feet out a little bit. You're going to stand slightly forward of your blocks. So how far back should they be behind you? Far enough so that you can drop down and put your seat on. That's where we're headed. Okay, that's why they're on their tall setting. This time around, we may do this twice and see about a medium setting, but we're going to go ahead and start standing. And notice, for me, that I have a hip that I like to lean into. So just switch your hips side to side and see if you can find the middle ground. And if you can see your image and see your hips, use it. If you can't, you have to use your proprioception and feel it. Try to land center. That's pretty good. For me, my hips don't like center. They like to squeegee out the side there. There we go. All right. And then you're going to bend your knees and think about the tailbone and the spine going straight up and down. We'll do this 2 times. This doesn't have to be a super big knee bend, just kind of seeing how it goes. You want your knees to be as relaxed as possible. So if you feel any pressure building up in a knee as you're bending it, pay attention to that. Try not to overwork the quads and make sure the knees are kind of going straight out to the side, not bending in or pushing out too much. Okay, one more time. We're going to come down and then we're going to reach down to the floor. This is going to give us a little stability so that we can drop the hips the rest of the way. Put your elbows into your knees as you drop the hips down. Take your feet wider if you need to, okay, to find a seat. Or if it's a little too low, you can put your block on it. Good. This is not the most graceful pose, but it is really good for your hips and for your low back, right? And now you're going to take your hands on the inside of the legs and you're going to slide down and you're going to get a stretch through the piriformis here in the back. And then we're going to turn a little side to side. And you can press and press if that feels good. Or you just keep the hands to the ground and turn side to side this way. But you're using the elbows isometrically in the knees. There's all kinds of places you could be feeling this. Inner thighs, back of the hips, low back, mid back, ribs, shoulders. We could name it. We could go on naming it. It really depends on where you're tight. Okay. So now we're going to, if you can, plant your right hand down on the inside of the right foot. You can do knuckles if that helps. You get a nice contact. And then you're going to take the left hand to your knee. And then you're going to twist and look over your left shoulder. So this is just a gentle push. And give yourself a nice deep breath here. And inhale, come center, right? Hand flat, fist, or up on the fingertips, right? Whatever works for you. Right hand on the knee, left hand to the floor, and twist to give yourself a couple breaths here. Good. And inhale, come back through center. We're going to plant the hands on the ground. We should follow the pathway that we came into this. Diving the head forward. Plant the hands down enough that you can really release the head and press the elbows into the legs to help you come up. And drop your head down here. Once you're ready, you can take your hands to your hips and come on up to standing. Hopefully didn't oversimplify that. That was very reasonable for you. Now we'll take the blocks forward and take the feet a little wider into a bigger straddle here. This is all preparing us to come down to the floor and do some work, but this is a great place to find some openness. You'll notice I'm using my mat laterally, so you might want to turn sideways on your mat. Choice is yours. I'm going to take the hands up overhead. Big stretch. And then exhale, bow forward and take your hands down to the blocks. Okay, here's a word to the wise. The bigger the straddle, the easier it is to get to your blocks. So if your straddle's a little short, you're going to be having a deeper stretch, a harder time getting lower. So if you go wider with the feet, you'll be more stable and closer to the ground already. So we've got options here. These blocks can stay right where they are in their high setting. You can bend the knees and take the blocks onto their low setting, or you can do sort of an intermediate stack here on any level that makes the most sense to drop the crown of the head down into the blocks, like you're doing a headstand. And release the weight of the head forward into the blocks. So you're actually getting a little pressure into the crown of the head on the block. So find a place for you where you can make some contact, right? That's actually really good stimulation for your central nervous system. And it's not anything compressive like doing a full headstand. Doesn't require balance or coordination beyond just being okay being upside down here. Give yourself one more full deep breath. And of course, if you have any adverse experiences while doing things, come out of it. Don't try to power through. Good. Bend the knees and come on up. Now we're going to take the blocks over to the right and frame your right foot. And I would like you to turn the right foot out to face the front of your mat, or maybe the front corner. Okay. And then you're going to bow down over that front leg. You can let your hips glide back towards your back leg and have a nice long spine over your front leg. And we'll take a full deep breath here. Inhale, bend that right knee. Walk your blocks through center. Turn the foot so it's facing forward again. Go around to the left side. Frame the left foot. Turn your toes to face that left corner of the mat. And then lengthen your spine. As you press the hips back behind you and straighten the left leg, try not to hyperextend the knee so you can keep a little strength and support in the leg as well as stretch. Nice full deep breaths here. Good. And inhale, come forward, plant the blocks, bend the knees, toe heel your feet in a little bit. Now we're going to do an experiment to see how we did with opening the legs up. You've got options. You can skip this part and just come to seated on the floor. You may want to have the blocks on a medium setting underneath you, or you might feel comfortable. Pick your angle with the feet, just dropping your hips down all the way to the floor at this point. Just see where you are. My feet are really turned out. My elbows are coming into the knees to push them out, and I'm dropping the hips down. So see how you feel about coming into this. This is very healthy for the hips to spend time in this position. It's also really healthy for the pelvic floor. We get a lot of great benefits from this, right? But it requires a good amount of joint mobility, health, and muscle tone to be able to come into this, right? And then we can really spend some time lengthening the neck once you get into this isometric place. One more full deep breath. And you can even put a little block underneath you if you're almost all the way there, and then you can find more length in the spine. Really interesting how that works. We have something to push against to lift up from. And then see if you can lift your low belly up from this position too. And there we are. Okay. So we're going to come to seated here on one block. I am conveniently already seated up on my block and stretch the legs out. I think I'm going to do one leg at a time. So I'm going to bring the left sole of the foot in, and I'm going to take conveniently my other block. Hopefully you have two. You could also use your rolled up bath towel under one aspect, your seat or your knee, if you only have one block with you today. It happens to the best of us. Right. So It's nice to prop this knee because we're elevated so that that knee can just float in space, and then it doesn't have to do the work of trying to figure out its orientation. Right. Inhale, sit up. My mom is doing yoga with us and she's having a wrestling match with the props, which is cracking both of us up. So get yourself settled. Settle down over there in the corner and take your fingertips to either side of the mat of your leg here. Inhale, lift up nice and tall. Take a moment, make sure your knees pointed straight up to the ceiling and your toes. And then exhale, walk the hands out over your legs. And you're sort of trying to lengthen the spine over the right leg, right? Our tendency is to try to pull our knee or pull our nose down to our knee, and it brings a big curvature in the back, and oftentimes we round the back. So let's go ahead and come up for a minute to a nice high diagonal. Find just the fingertips on the ground. Find a little softness in the knee so that that joint's not hyperextended or compressed. Inhale here. Exhale, scoop your belly up and in as you come forward. Keep the collarbone wide, and you just come down as far as you can without bending, right? Take an inhale here, get a little longer, find extra space. You have to uncompress the spine to do this. And then scoop and come forward a little bit more. One more breath here. Inhale, lengthen, reaching long through the crown of the head, trying to grow out of the waist. And then exhale, bow forward. At the very end, once your chest is as far forward as it can get and still nice and long, then you drop the head. Try to keep a little buoyancy in the knee. One more full deep breath here. Down at the bottom. Good. And inhale. Come on up. Now we'll switch sides. Sole of the right foot into the left leg, prop the knee. This is a great way to come into a hamstring stretch, by the way. Most of us try to do these flat, and we don't really have the same leverage to do it that way. We feel like maybe we should be able to, because we always learned it that way. But being elevated, you're coming from an angle up above. You have a different load on the leg. It's able to move in a more spacious way. So this is kind of ideal. If we had 3 blocks, what would be perfect would be like a longer bench for the seat, right? 2 blocks together and then one underneath the bent knee. But we do what we can. Two blocks is generous. And 2 blocks in a towel works also. Place the fingertips on either side of the leg here to frame it. Find a little softness in the knee so it's not hard pressed and locked back. Inhale here. This is to lengthen the spine. Inhales to grow taller, lengthening into the waist. And then as you exhale, walk forward with the fingertips. Right? And just pause right where you feel yourself wanting to round the shoulders or round into the back, maybe even lift up just slightly above that to regain your verticality, your length. And then exhale. Come forward. Another inhale to lengthen. And exhale. Come forward even more. And then at the very bottom of the stretch, after you've gotten yourself as long as you're going to get, take an inhale here. And exhale, bow your head forward. Oh, there's a really good stretch we didn't do on the other side. So we're going to come out of this. We'll do it on both sides here. The switch. So it's good to kind of keep things moving. Bring the right leg out. You're going to walk the hands out, just like we did before. Take an inhale here. And then as you exhale, you're going to take the left arm across and you're going to feel the back of the left hip and the waist and the shoulder as you slide the left hand down the leg, reaching for wherever you can grab a hold of, whether it's under the calf, the ankle, or the pinky toe side of the foot. Take an inhale here, lift up and away from that handhold. So you've bound yourself. You've got a hold here. Inhale. And then exhale, twist. So my right hand is braced on the floor and I'm twisting towards it. I'm going to do that 2 more times. Inhale, take the pressure off, coming center. Keep your hold. And then exhale, twist. 1 more time. Inhale. And exhale. Twist. And now see if in the twist, you can come forward a little bit more and get a deeper stretch. 1 more full deep breath here. Slowly let go of your hold. Bring both hands back underneath your shoulders. Bring your head to center. So you're not trying to pull or leverage the spine up from a twisted position. Once you're centered, lift yourself back up. That was a really, really beautiful stretch. Hopefully it worked well for you. Got into some good spaces for the quadratus lumborum and associated muscle complex. Come over to the other side. Prop the right knee. Turn to face the left leg. Inhale. Come up. Nice and tall. Exhale. Start to bow forward. Reach your right hand across. Find your handhold. You can start around the calf, and that might be where you stay, or you may be able to slide down to under the Achilles tendon, the ankle, or the pinky toe side of the foot. Take an inhale here, lengthen out nice and long, and then exhale, pull yourself forward into that bend. Oh man, it's tighter. Good. Inhale, come up. Keep the hand hold. Exhale, little twist, right? And I'm bracing with my left hand on the floor on the outside of that left leg. Ooh, and there it is. Oh man. Inhale, guide your head back to center. Keep a hold. Exhale, twist. So you're maintaining the bind, you're just releasing the twist with each inhale. 1 more time. Inhale, center. And exhale, twist. And then stay in the twist and pull yourself down slowly, right? We're staying in a zone that we're comfortable working in. And give yourself 1 full deep breath at the base of the stretch. And inhale, release the bind so the right hand comes back underneath the shoulders. Swing your head forward so that it's center again. And then with both hands under the shoulders, gently climb up. Nice work. Nicely done. Take your legs out. Find a little straddle here and then take your block that you've been using as a prop into the center. Highly recommend for this one sitting up on something. So sit up on a block, which I am, or sit up on a towel, because it makes a huge difference in terms of what you have access to. All right, so we're going to start out here. Take a moment. My feet, because I've been doing ballet recently, and also because my hip structure likes external rotation, want to fall outwards. And I'm not wanting to really press the external rotation. I'm actually wanting the femur heads to come into their sockets in a relative parallel position. So I'm going to keep my knees up to the ceiling, second and third toe up to the ceiling. I'm going to try to keep my legs there. It's going to be a little bit of a job as we come forward. So block on its high setting to start. Inhale, sit up nice and tall. This does not mean throw your ribs forward and your belly out. That will not serve you because that's loading the back. So if you feel tension come into the back when you sit up nice and tall, see if you can think more of extending the waist. Should be a little stretch here. And then the tailbone and low back should actually feel like they get to relax here. That's the goal with this upright posture. Inhale right here. And then exhale. Start to come forward with your block a little bit. Pick a spot where you feel like, oh, I could rest on my forearms there on its high setting. And check in with how your legs are doing. For most of us, this is a pretty tight stretch. And we know there's no escape hatch when you've got both legs stretched out and you're leaning forward. You're in the stretch. So your body can't really compensate very well to take the load off. So we want to make sure that we're working at a load that it's comfortable with. This is fine for me. So I'm going to go down to the middle block to put my forearms on. And now this requires a little thought for me about, well, how are my knees feeling? Where's my alignment? Are my knees still straight up to the ceiling? They were actually drifting in. There's a little internal rotation as I come in. And so I have to kind of push them out, but not too far. That's my particular adjustment here. And then I want to make sure I'm not overly loaded on one side. My right shoulder was kind of creeping up and I could feel the tension coming in. And there was way more weight on my right arm. So I'm going to bring myself over a little bit more into my left hip and left forearm. Those are really important things to notice when you're in these positions, because you can kind of start to unwind some postural imbalances, but only if you become aware of them, right? Next up, you can bring your hands down to the ground and maybe bring your forearms down. Now, this might be a little bit too much, right? So you figure out where you want to be. But what I would love is if you could stack your blocks or block to a place where you could drop your head on it. And this is really next level release for the back of the legs. Still trying to keep some buoyancy in the knees. They just drop into the back of the knee joints in this position. And so I have to keep a little activeness in the inner thighs and lift in the back of the knees in order to not hyperextend. And I also have to be really mindful of how I'm loaded. I really want to lean into that right elbow and take pressure off the left for some reason. Posturally, that makes more sense to me. So I have to actively kind of press into the left side and sort of lean a little bit towards it. Try not to overdo, but finding that middle ground where I have equal pressure in both my elbows. One more full deep breath here. Good. And then walk your hands in. All right. And bend your knees. And just come off of whatever it is you've been sitting on, block or towel. Set that off to the side. And now we get to come down onto our back. So what's interesting is we often start here, and this is a lovely place to start, but it doesn't necessarily help us find the most release in our hips to start here if we haven't done some stuff to already kind of open, warm, and unload them. Sometimes this is just loading the hips. So when you come to lying on your back, very, very first thing to do is unroll your towel to the right level for you. And it varies day to day for me what the right level is based on my hairdo and also the neck and back tension I have. But put a little cushion under your head right at the base of the skull so that you can get some support for the ribs releasing down into the body and maybe start to feel the belly naturally lift up and underneath the ribs. And here you just begin a little side to side sway with the knees. And this is a great check-in on how the hips and the low back are feeling at this point in class, because we've done a lot for them already, right? And now we're going to add the head. We did this yesterday. So as the knees go to one side, you bring the head to the other. Inhale, center. Exhale, just a little wringing out through the upper and lower spine. We're not going for a big range of motion here, so I highly recommend keeping the shoulders lower, or the arms lower than the shoulders, and keeping this movement range in a non-triggering range. So sometimes when we go over to one side and we feel pain, we're like, oh, if I go a little bit further, maybe I'll stretch it more, and then that will come out. That pain is actually a little impingement in the SI joint. And moving deeper into that sensation is not going to give us relief. It'll just aggravate it more. So keep this soft. Inhale, center. Exhale to the side. Inhale, center. Exhale to the side. As long as you don't have a headache or any dizziness or nausea or anything like that, this should feel really soothing to your nervous system, especially if you keep it soft and easy. And soothing the nervous system, coming out of fight or flight, coming out of our reactionary, anxious, or active space and into a softer space, is the very first transition you need to make in order to interrupt chronic pain, tension, or holding in the body. Okay, we're going to do this for a few more here because we're getting into a lovely hypnotic space, which is really, really good for the body to come out of. Just sort of gentling the muscles that hold us posturally. It's a little rock the baby for your central nervous system and spine. All the muscles around it. See if you can quiet down the ribs, quiet down the hips, the pelvis, the low back. One more full deep breath here. Good. Magnificent. Come into center. Take a moment here and settle yourself. So when we first lie down, we're probably not in our most vertical place, but we just kind of wrung some stuff out. So we may have a little bit more access. Maybe we released some of that tension that was pulling us into a twist in our spine. And now we can settle a little bit more evenly. So take your feet wide, let the knees drop together to touch, find that towel support under the head, where your chin just naturally nods down towards the chest, but not closes off the air, right? Still have some space between your Adam's apple and the chin. And then a nice low position of the arms. So we've talked about it, how much harder the body has to work when the arms are overhead. So now we need to quiet things down and take a couple of full deep breaths here, finding some elongation and release of the spine, right? Settling the abs back into the body. Ribs are soft and easy. Hips are relaxed. We'll place one hand on the heart and one hand on the low belly. I want you to travel through a couple of things recently that might have brought you into an adrenalized state. Was it a loud noise in a different part of the house? That happens sometimes when you have children. And it triggers an alert in your brain. And that alert in your brain sends chemicals to the body that says, let's be ready in case we need to respond to something, which is a state of hypervigilance. We talk about with trauma victims for sure. But let's just take a moment to acknowledge that parenthood is slightly traumatic in that way, that we are frequently entering a state of hypervigilance. So it could be that, or it could be something that happened during a workday, or on the road, or an interaction you had with another person, or something you heard on the news. Any number of things can trigger that fight or flight response. I just want you to hold yourself at this moment. Take deep breaths into the low back. 5 counts in through the nose. And 5 counts out through the nose. This might seem a little woo-woo for the moment here, but see if you can go with that, right? Our fight or flight response triggers tension in the back because we need to crouch in order to spring forward to fight, spring away to run, right? Or just crouch in a freeze position, protecting our most vulnerable inner organs. Instead, we need to unfurl. We need to feel those things unwinding in us and come into a place of peace, spiritually, physically, mentally, trusting that in this exact moment, right now, in this space, we are in a state of complete safety and perfect peace, that we could have that if we would allow ourselves to drop into it. See if that's available to you for the next 3 nice deep breaths. And if you can transition some of the muscular holding in the back and hips, because those muscles aren't needed to support you, because you're already supported by the floor. 5 counts in through the nose. And 5 counts out through the nose. So just briefly, without totally belaboring the point, you can release the arms, let them come out to the side, maybe separate the knees, find some ease in the body here. As adults, we don't have people pick us up and hold us tightly and tell us that everything's going to be okay and that we're going to be taken care of. And so oftentimes we try to hold ourselves together muscularly when we don't feel okay. And it's all compensation in the body. And when we're like, I have some chronic tension in the body and I can't figure out how to release it, movement doesn't help, this is really difficult. Oftentimes it's that feeling of not being okay that's stored in the body. And there's a lot of reasons why that can come in and then can kind of lodge itself in there. And then it's a little bit of a feedback loop, because when we have a stored emotion or experience of not being okay in the body that's stored physically, as bodies do, then our body kind of is constantly remembering it's not okay. And then our brain goes, I don't really feel great. And I don't feel like I'm okay. And then the body goes, right, I remember what we do about that. And it ratchets the tightness up a little bit. And then your body goes, oh yeah, I really don't feel okay. And so it's this sort of feedback loop. And what we really need to do is bring ourselves out of it. And it's really hard to do because, of course, it's kind of amplifying itself, right? So the practice is bringing yourself into a state of stillness in which the body is fully supported, in which you can say to yourself, I am okay, I am safe, and I don't need those muscles to hold me right now because I'm already held. And to literally hold yourself, because we can't always get somebody to come and give us the biggest, longest hug when we need it. So to hold yourself so that your body feels that sense of wrapped warmth, security, and reassurance. And that becomes very important as a tool for soothing the central nervous system, which literally changes our muscle tone, brings us out of an adrenalized state in which we can then begin to unwind those patterns. So it is psychosomatic in the sense that we really need to find our way into some psychological peace and a good place of security before we can sort of unwind some of those deeper tension patterns that are chronic, that are just living with us. We have to be okay. We have to find a way to be okay before our body knows that it's okay to let go of them. And then it will, by degrees, as we support it, feel like it's okay, I don't need that anymore. I can let go. And we'll just leave it at that for now. Gently come off of your towel roll that's underneath your head. Roll it on back up. And I just want to note also that I don't say these things because I have it all figured out and I don't have any health tension in my body. I've released it all. That is not the case at all. It's a constant process of re-equilibralizing yourself and beginning to sort of acknowledge, oh, I'm holding some tension. Now I need to create a sense of safety and come in. And it's kind of a lifetime process because at this point, we've all lived for a while. So we've had some accumulation. Take that towel roll out to the side so it's perpendicular to the hips. Try to straighten out the spine again. We kind of keep returning to this nice parallel alignment. So how are my hips doing here? Are they level? Try to level them off to the best of your ability. Are your feet level? You're not sure, you can't see them, so you have to feel it. If you don't really know, bring them together to touch. So yeah, that's level. And then separate them so the heels are aligned with your sits bones, right? Then the arms come down by the sides. When you go to roll up through the hips here, I want you to do a couple just little tucks and unrolls so that you can start to listen to, maybe take the hands to the top of the hips. Listen to, as you come into that tuck, if one leg triggers more than the other, and if that causes any twisting. If one leg is working harder than the other, try to keep the front of the thighs, the back of the hips, all of that working evenly so that you can go straight up. All right, so do that a couple of times so you can figure out how things are going, and then slide that towel roll underneath you. And then once I get the towel roll under my sacrum, I've got that nice planted grounding there, I kind of slide my shoulders back. I curl up and press backwards to lengthen my spine. And then I lower down. And I might have lengthened so much that I need to adjust the towel roll underneath me. So figure out what your balance of all that is. But man, does it feel good to get a little decompression in that upper spine. Your shoulders might feel kind of relaxed here. So the first thing we're going to do is just flip the legs up. So take your right leg up and give it a little shake. Right, so you get a wobble in the calf, your ankle's kind of dangling, the thigh feels loose, and then get the thigh wobbling. So shake it around so that it goes wobble wobble. Yes, that's the sound effect. Right. And then you're going to bring your other leg up. Let's put the right leg down so you have that same kind of stability side to side here. Stability is something that really encourages the body to soften. It helps quite a bit. And if you have started in this process that we're doing today to notice a transition to a calmer state in your central nervous system, that you're softer, quieter, more relaxed, that your muscle tone in fact has changed, begin to develop a sensitivity, an awareness to observe when that state change happens, whether it ramps up or ramps down, so you can be in awareness of it. It's really select foot down, and then we're going to flip the right leg up. Just wiggle it a little bit. Don't go into a full shake, just a little bit to see, yeah, is that loose? You want the knee right over the hip. You want the ankle right over the knee. And then you're going to flip the left leg up and do the same thing. Loosen everything up. And you want to find that 0 point where, yes, the chest is really loaded and heavy, but it feels relaxed. And you're not feeling any tension in the low back. So there's a point here where I drop the knees in towards the chest and I can feel some tug in my low back. And there's a point at which I reach the feet away from me where I feel the tightening in the front of the thighs. And then there's a midpoint where the front of the thighs are soft and the low back is easy. And that's where we want to be, right? And then you're just going to bend the knees a little bit more and swing the knees in and out like windshield wipers. Yeah, it's like your big toes are going to touch and go away from each other, right? And this, you want to find a range where it's super relaxed. So that's why we kind of had to find the 0 point really consciously. So we're not tightening up through the hip flexors and not super loading the low back. And that requires you to have the towel in a good place too. Check your chest, check your ribs, Is there tightness creeping in? See if you can keep it super soft and released. Right. And notice if there's a part of you through all this release that's just hanging on. Keep working through that tension. Pause here and just let the knees drop into the chest. And now we'll take the arms out to shoulder height. And we're just going to roll the palms open and then flat. So just getting a little rotation in the arms, but pretty passive. Let's see if you can drop some tension in the shoulders that you might be holding. Easy does it. Good. Now, you're just going to glide the arms down along the sides, bend the elbows, and bring your fingertips underneath your knees, and then pull the knees out to the side, but keep the shoulders soft and the chest wide. So the knees are falling back towards your shoulders. If you feel comfortable taking the hands to the tops of the knees in this position, you can go ahead and do that and get this deep hinge in the hips. And it should feel nice and relaxed in the hip socket. I like to do a little bounce here to try to let the inner thighs and the hip socket release. And then go ahead and see if we're going to do kind of a double action here. So I'm going to slide my hands underneath the knee to the top of the thigh and wedge my heels of my hands on the top of the thigh, about 2/3 of the way up the leg, right? So just, I don't know, 1/3 of the way away from the knee, however you think about that. And then the heels are up to the ceiling. That place where you have a little isometric shelf. So you can push the heels into the thighs and thighs into the heels of the hands into the thighs and the thighs into the heels of the hands. And then if it feels good to extend the legs and bend them a couple times here, you can, but notice if it loads the back or if it causes too much tightness, right? Good. And then from here, you're going to bring the fingertips up the legs towards the pinky toes. And you might be holding the ankles. You might even be back to holding the back of the knees. Or maybe you can hold the pinky toes comfortably here. And then you're going to shift side to side with your legs. Easy does it. Nice work. All right. Then come into center with both heels and then see how you do, taking both heels out to the side. Ooh, big stretch. Good. And flex the feet, bend the knees, bring them into center, and then you're going to place the feet down on the floor. Right ankle comes to the left knee. And you're just going to rock a little bit to the side. The edge of the towel is gently pushing into that hip socket. And that feels really good. It's a very subtle massage. If we had a ball, we could put it in there and that would be really a much deeper massage. But this is a little release for the piriformis and for some of the deeper hip flexor muscles and rotators. Right? Come in the center here. And now you're going to pull the leg across the body. This is going to stretch again more of the QL. And we'll do a reclining twist in a minute. But we're checking in on it. Come back to center and see how your towel roll feels. You're doing okay. You can lift your left foot off the floor and draw the legs into the chest. And then you get a really big piriformis hamstring stretch here, right? And then as you come over to the left, away from that leg, it doesn't have to go very far. I'm going just a couple centimeters, maybe a full inch. I know I'm using different metrics there, it's all right. To just a little bit, a small movement does a lot here to rinse. I come in and out of it. A couple more times. Good. And a release. Stretch that leg out and place it down. Other side, starting with the left ankle on the right knee. Always check in to settle the hips here, right? Because they get a little twisted when you go from 2 legs to 1. And then rock over into the side of that hip. So rock to the left. And just let that towel kind of get a little pressure into your seat and your hip. Not too much, just enough. This is very subtle, right? I think it depends on your towel and the length of it and where you're landing here, and how sensitive your hips are. But definitely doing this with a tennis ball or racquetball is more intense. So find that. Once you're done there, you're gonna go the other way, across and away, across and away. And that again gets into a little QL stretch, maybe wrap around a little hip flexor. Again, it's all different for each of us. There's some muscle focus to the shape naturally, but then how we use our body depends on how we really feel it. So next one, come to center, level off the hips, and then float your right leg off the floor and drop the knees into the chest. Now start to move to the right, and you'll feel the piriformis hamstring, maybe hip flexor, maybe inner thigh stretch. Again, just where you're tight. It can feel really good to take the arms out to the side if they're not already. And just enjoy the stretch you get through the shoulders, the groundedness you have in the upper body, which really helps release the low body. But go, come back down to the ground. Unwind that leg, give it a little shake. You're going to place both feet down on the ground here, and you're going to push that towel out from underneath you. And you're going to take your blocks and you're going to take them to either side of your mat here on their medium setting, soles of the feet together, knees open wide, and find a rested shape here. Try to find the knees supported evenly. This can be another great opportunity to take your towel roll a little under the head, right? Unroll it so that it's the right height, because that really allows the neck to find its most supported release, which then allows the whole spine to rest. Really essential to settling these muscles in the back. Take one hand to your low ribs, one hand to your chest, without tensing up through the arms. Just close your eyes and take some soft, full deep breaths here. And while you're here, see if you can say to yourself, I am safe. My loved ones are safe. I am satisfied. I have everything I need. And just breathe that in. See if you can unclench the throat, unclench the jaw, soften the tongue, soften the eyes, soften the temples, and soften the belly. When you're ready, when you feel really at ease here, truly, deeply, truly, come with the arms come off of the chest and out to the side, palms up. And we'll have 4 nice deep breaths here. When you're done with your 4th breath, take your time, stretching your legs out long, coming off the blocks, moving them out to the side. See if you can come into a little heel rock here. One more full deep breath in your heel rock. And come to a pause. Take your time, rolling over to one side. And to come up from laying down, extend one leg and come on up. Okay, I'm gonna pause the recording and come check in, but thank you for being here through this session. It's been a joy to practice with you.